Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm gonna be talking about art style and how to stylize your character or whatever you wanna stylize. It is the same concept. And I'll give you a challenge that is so fun to do that will help a lot in your art style searching journey. So stay till the end and participate. So to start, we need to know first what is a stylized art. Stylized art is a form that has moved away from its natural forms and shapes. So we manipulate color, lines, shapes, forms, and features. So the art appears similar to the natural state, but in a style. So it is about the decisions you make to make things look simple but readable and also recognizable. So finding your art style can happen by several ways. The first way, and the longer yet effective one, is not trying to find your art style. It sounds weird, but that's actually what happens to most of us. I'm gonna talk about my personal experience. I started drawing like 3 years ago. I used to draw as a kid and I was good at copying. I wish I had any piece of art to show you, but I really didn't care that much about what I was doing. I was just having some fun and then threw all that away. But I had the passion again, as I said, and I started to draw. But I didn't know anything about learning to draw, so I just again started copying what I'm seeing. And sometimes it worked and others not. So I felt frustrated and wasting too much time doing nothing, and not even a noticeable improvement. So I decided to watch videos on basics and fundamentals. So I started all over again like I knew nothing. And the standard progress, which is learning to draw realistically, hyper-realism, and so on. And then I got stuck since my basic knowledge was lacking. So I started again. Every time I get stuck, I go back to basics. But this time I had something in mind, which is how to make things simpler. I didn't know that much about stylization, but as I continued, I started thinking abstract. So suddenly, with practicing and drawing a lot, my style changed to semi-realism without even noticing. That only by keeping in mind that I wanna make it as easy as possible. So as I practiced more, my line art got better and also my style got noticeable. So this was my journey and still don't know if it is going to change later or not, since I still wanna experience more. The second way is to experiment yourself with different styles from your favorite artists. But you need to do that while having a solid basics, so you won't waste too much time. So it is more of studying what you like on your favorite artist's art and how to imitate that, even developing that more. Like the line art of someone and the shapes from the other, and so on, till you get the result you desire and then start from that point. So, how to manipulate the natural form in order to stylize our portraits? Or in a different way, what are the factors that affects the natural form to make it more stylized or abstract? I can talk about every single one on its own, but since they are all interact, so I'm gonna mention them all and then apply that while drawing. So what are the shape of the head you are seeking for? What kind of lines you are using? Do your lines depend heavily on curves or straight lines or a mixture? What kind of style you are seeking for? Is it semi-realism, anime, manga, or another type of style? So in conclusion, it is gonna be shapes, proportions, line type, and how abstract your feature's going to be. So let's start with the average person head and proportions. I'm going to use Andrew Loomis method since it is effective and informative. I'll be explaining but not in details since I already made several videos on that topic, which you can check on the description down below. For the frontal view, we start with a circle representing the cranium, which is the part of the skull holding the brain in. We divide the circle into halves, with a horizontal center line which represents the eyebrow line, and a vertical one for the symmetry. Then I'll chop the head from the sides with an oval since the head is not fully rounded as you see. You can consider the tip of the oval as 2/3 of half of the vertical line. The upper line represents the hairline and the lower one represents the nose line. Then another line for the chin, which has the same spacing as the hair and nose line. Ears set between hair and nose line. If we divided the distance between nose and chin line, we're gonna find the lip line slightly above that. And finally, the eye line is below the eyebrow line or in the center of the whole head. Then attaching the jaw to the chin with angled lines. So the first key to stylize the head is the shape of it, and that also depends on the proportions and types of lines used. So it is kinda back to back. So I'll give some examples for the head shape and you're gonna notice the difference. So let's ignore the features. What are the major differences? Proportions, the shape of the head, using lines and curves. For the proportions at figure 1, you can see it is kinda the same for the average realistic head, but still you can make a style of it once you add the features. For figure 2, proportions are kinda squished at the upper half of the head and big for the lower. Same for 3 and 4, there are some variations between hair, nose, chin, and the eye line. For the lines of the heads you're gonna find on figure 1 and 4, mostly curves, and for figure 2 and 3, I use a mixture between straight lines and curves. But for the line art, I'm pretty sure you will find it the same for all the figures. So when you choose a line art that suits your style, it will even add more and more to the style of it. You gotta keep in mind that the style respectively follows if you drew the 3/4 view or a profile view as you see. So you can progress the natural progress I mentioned before till it becomes like a second nature to take those decisions, or you just study hard other artists and experiment with lines and shapes till you find your art style. So what about the features? And don't forget that we are looking to make things simple and kinda creative. So let's take a look at the features. First, the eye. I already have a tutorial on the eyes and nose, but let's go through them fast. The parts that wrap around and cover the eyeball called the eyelids, and the inner side of the lids is called a tear duct. Now we have the sclera, which is the white portion of the eyeball, which is not actually white. It has like a gradient values since we shade it as a sphere, as I mentioned before. The iris, which is the color portion. The pupil, which is the black dot. And finally, the cornea. You can consider it as a cover, a transparent one that works as a contact lens. And as you can see here, the eyelids are wrapping around the eyeball, since again we are talking about a sphere. So after we knew the eye parts, now it is your turn to make it simple. So what are the questions to ask? What are the parts that going to represent the eye? How am I going for it? So in figure 1, since it is in the semi-realism state, so you're gonna find it more of a realistic eye. For figure 2, I made the eye rounded and big, used the upper lid and just a curve for the lower lid, and the iris as a circle with a unique shape for the cornea. So we excluded the shape of the lower lid and the tear duct, also the lower eyelashes, but we still recognize it as an eye. For figure number 3, I chose to keep the upper and lower lid, but the eye itself, I used only a small curve for the upper lid and a dot for the iris. For figure 4, I chose the upper lid and just small 2 lines for the lower one. Also the iris without a cornea. So it is really you being creative with it. And not forgetting to mention that eyebrows, you can make it like only hair strands or bulk shape using curves and lines, or like in figure 4, just an oval. So for the nose, since I'm not going to mention all the scientific terms, I'll construct it into 3 parts. The first part is called the bridge, which consists of a bone part and a cartilage part. The second part is what we call the bow, and it is a cartilage. The third part is the wing, and it is a fat part. And the ball and the wing parts hold inside of it the nostrils. And for real, that's all you need to know to draw a nose. And again, let's analyze the figures. As in figure 1 and 3, I used only curves and included the nostrils and wings. But the difference is the way I attached them together. For figure 2, I used straight lines and curves, adding a circle for the tip of the nose. And finally for figure 4, I only used like 2 commas for the nostrils and some hatching above them to set the shape. Now the ears. Since I haven't made a tutorial on it, so I'll explain the main and the important parts of it till I get into details on an upcoming video. So to wrap things up, ears are like a question mark with a Y letter inside. The hook of the question mark is called the helix, which is like a ring around the perimeter of the ear. And the dot is the earlobe, which is sometimes attached to the jaw and sometimes it is free as in those shapes. And the Y shape is called the antihelix. The side node called tragus, then the keyhole, which is the ear notch, and finally the ear hole. So let's analyze what I made in figure 1. I actually included the whole parts, so nothing to explain. For figure 2, I included the tragus as a half sphere, and the shape of the ear itself is a mixture between lines and curves, so it won't be close to a question mark. But I added the helix as 2 curves not meeting each other. For figure 3, it is just the tragus and like a comma for the helix. And finally, figure 4, as simple as it gets. Now it is time for the last feature, which is the lip. So the part that holds the lip, which is between the nose and the chin, is curved out as a cylinder, as you see it from the profile view. So we have top lip, which has 3 forms, the bottom lip, which has 2 forms. The one in the top middle is like a heart, and wedges between the lower 2 forms. And the 2 nods, which are the corners of the lips, they're like lots of overlaps between these parts, which you can see when you draw the lips from a 3/4 view. Overlapping forms indicated as T-shapes, as you see. For the figure 1, I kinda included every part and add some dark spots showing some overlaps, which will not be that much visible from the front view. So figure 2, I made a curve with side nods and just the upper lip. A hack is to draw only a dark shape under the lower lip, which automatically gives the illusion of the lower lip. And for figure 3, I just drew a small curve with nods, while drawing also the philtrum, which is the concave shape above the lips, and an arch under the lower lips, which on the sides of it there are pumps. And lastly, for figure 4, if it was a closed mouth, so it would have been just a line. So you figure this one out. And that's it, guys. So let's get into the fun part. What about moving all the features of the 4 heads out there and then swap the features between them all? Let's just give an example. Now guys, all you need to do is try this at home and be creative with it. I actually had so much fun, and I'll leave the PSD file or the source file down below in the description, but it will only have the main shape of the average head. But for the whole file, I will only leave it for those who join me on the membership on Discord. You also can join me on Discord and show me what you did, and let's enjoy the process. Thank you guys for watching.